The Lot Pod is kindly sponsored by Fast Signs. Fast Signs are an established family-run business who've been providing businesses around Leeds and West Yorkshire with effective signs and graphics for almost 30 years. Fast Signs are passionate about helping customers make a statement with signs that are eye-catching, effective and delivered fast. Hi everybody, welcome to the Lot Pod, the Leeds Rhinos Lot 17A podcast kindly sponsored by Fast Signs. We're back, we're here in the heart of our amazing city in Leeds and the Brotherhood Bar, and it's time for our annual Leeds Rhinos season preview as you look ahead to the 2025 season with a very special guest who I'll introduce in a moment. But producer Chris is here.
You seem really far away.
Because this table's like 19 foot long, you can't miss my massive head.
No, I can still see that.
What are you laughing at? How are you?
Yeah, very well, very well.
And we've got a very special Rhinos guest, friend of the podcast. I think this is the third hat-trick appearance.
You say special, but this is the third time.
This
so
is the third
special, is it?
It's Barrie McDermott. Barrie, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Excited for the season.
The music's just come on in here, which helps. Thank you. Everything. Thanks for coming down and joining us. Really appreciate it. Are you someone that enjoys the off-season to have a break, Barrie?
Definitely, because I watch and absorb that much rugby league that by the time you get to September, I'm ready for that those big games and then the GF itself. So enjoy off season, October, November, December, January. A lot of food and drink consumed and a lot of sun chasing. So a couple of holidays, but ready to get back into it now. A bit disappointed with a topic we'll discuss, an injury already before a ball's kicked, because I think we need those big characters.
Yes.
We need those big presences, because I think he'd have done some really good things.
Well, there's only one place to start. Leeds did play yesterday, Leeds Wigan, for Ash Hanley's testimonial. The Rhinos came out victors 22-4. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah,
do you not trust me?
No, it felt wrong. But it came at an enormous cost, as Barrie said, because the news broke early this afternoon that Sevo would miss the whole upcoming season with an ACL injury. As Leeds fans, we do have some people down there watching this day, and Bruce Chris, I think we're all devastated by that news. I think everyone's nodding along. That is, Barrie, some of the biggest news.
Because I think he was a big signing as well as being a big man.
Yeah,
it's huge.
He was a big signing and somebody that 10, 15 metres out is going to score your try, but the beginning of any set of six, kick reception, momentum is gathered and made by those back three plays. It's back five really, but you put Hawley in the mix, who's as big as any forward I ever played with, and then the injury, of course, now. But I watched it on the app. I couldn't go live, but I was hopeful at first because it didn't look anything. It didn't look like he twisted or turned or anything, and I felt really sorry for the two guys who were carrying him off.
Why was there only two guys?
He leaned
a duty of care
all his weight on their shoulders, and
like
every step he took, they sunk deeper and deeper into the ground.
Actually subbed somebody to help. But
what we've since found out is those two physios have blown both their ACLs trying to catch him.
I think he didn't want. He were doing the rugby thing of not wanting to get a stretcher.
Yes,
so trying to get himself off.
I'm fine with that. I thought, oh well, it can't be that bad because he's assisted, but he's walked off. But yeah, it's the worst news. As we know, ACL's 9 months tops. There's a little bit of wriggle room either side of that 9 months, but yeah, we're going to miss him for the season. I think it's just for the purpose of this, I'm going to say we for now because I've not got me Sky Sports badge on just yet, so I'm allowed to say we for now.
Yeah. I think they need to get rid of that number 2 shirt.
Yeah, Fussatua was injured.
Fussatua didn't have much luck
either,
did it?
Absolutely cursed.
Get rid of it, put it in fire.
Should have gave him 22. So we'll see Sevo in 2026, and I'm sure he'll come back and destroy Super League as we thought he would this year. But we have signed Ryan Hall. We've got Ash Hanley, who's perhaps playing centre, but obviously is predominantly a winger. We've got Riley Lum, we've got Max Simpsons, plenty of options and coverage across there. Although we have lost Sevo, which is a massive loss, I still don't feel we're going to lose. We've got a lot of squad depth in those positions.
I do, but again, it's about how you adapt, and it's about how the team will shuffle those players around. I get the feeling. I don't know Brad Arthur enough yet. I don't know the obvious things are obvious, aren't they? He likes it physical, he likes it fast, he asks a lot of his players, but I don't know how he works with his players. Is he somebody that likes to introduce a young player and give them a chance, i.e. Riley Lum, or will he just put players in any position because he keeps his trusted troops around? He might put McDonnell in the centre. There's a couple of options available to him, so it'll be interesting to see what that first team looks like against Wakey.
How do you see it, Chris? Do you think there's plenty of coverage across that?
There is.
That back line.
Done out with Miller being out and Alfie. All hinges on whether he wants to keep Ash at centre.
They could push Ash out and Connor at centre.
I think for the Wakey game, I think he'll keep Riley Lum. Keep Ash at centre, Connor at
I'd like to
full-back.
see a young kid get a chance. I
He
really
don't
would.
look out of place neither
No.
to me. He did when he first came in because he's like a bit gangly, isn't he?
Yeah, I
but
think
he seems to be able to push his way through the line a bit more.
I might be wrong here, but I feel like his awareness isn't quite there yet. He's not got enough
Possibly,
game
yeah.
smarts yet, but that might be the rabbit in the headlights scenario of being in the first team. But he's got toe on, he's got pace, and that's what you need as a winger.
Yeah, looks a superstar. Absolute superstar.
So yeah, I think that's what he'll do. I think he'll keep Ash at centre. I think he wants him to be centre.
With Sivo injured, there's an opportunity there to perhaps deregister him off the cap, and we could go back into the market. Don't quite know the intricacies of that, but if we were to deregister Sivo, Barry, do you feel, after we've just touched on the positions and the coverage we've got there, would we need a like-for-like winger, or do you think the Rhinos might, if they were to dip back in, kind of look at another position and trying to strengthen elsewhere?
I think sometimes you look at the players that you would like within the squad. I've always been a massive admirer of Tim Laffey. I think he'd be great for us, I really do. And if he became available, Salford have had their own nightmare of an off-season. I think I'm a massive Paul Rowley fan, and I think he's done a really good job of keeping all that group together, and that buyout may or may not happen in the next couple of days, but I think it's coming. But if Tim Laffey became available, he'd be a great player for us.
Be a good signing, Chris.
Yeah, it's been a bit weird, hasn't it? Because it's been a bit like the vultures circling, and I don't particularly like that. But I think Brad Arthur said something similar, didn't he? He's not going to contribute to another club's downfall, but if they need to sell players, they need to sell players, don't they? Like we talked about before, I mean, we might have cap space to get Callum if he wants to come back.
Yeah.
I think Callum's days as a centre are behind him, but he's a magnificent player.
Yeah,
and a good
I wouldn't play him
pro
at centre.
and a leader.
I would play him at second row.
Yeah.
So Sivo's gone. On to 25. Rhinos preparation, Barry. Over the off-season, what do you think some of the key areas that the Rhinos should have perhaps been focusing on this year?
It's some of those non-tangibles, isn't it? It's that toughness under pressure. If you can cope with things while you're fatigued and your mind's all over the place and you're in that chaotic phase of any match, if you can cope with things, the one thing that will get you out of jail is how fit you are, because when we become fatigued as rugby league players, we make poor decisions because we're nearly always trying to find the easiest route from A to B. He's definitely got them fit. He's definitely worked on that mental fitness, that mental toughness, because you'd have a field day if you were the bleep machine when he's on TV, because every other word is the F word, isn't it? But I've worked under those coaches and I've been around those players. You know exactly what's expected of you, and I reckon, given the regime they were under before, I'm not rubbishing anybody, and I think Rowan did some really good things early on when he came to the club, but it was apparent to everybody it wasn't working with the group that he's got. But what Brad Arthur's done is he's brought that strict, tough, hard nose. You look at Wigan have won a lot of things in the last couple of years, and you know that the DNA of any Wigan player when they stroll into that building at 14, 15 years of age is you've got to be tough and there's no excuses, and I'd like to see an element of that in the squad, and I think that's something they'll have invested in. And I also think as well, again, I'm going to say we. Yeah,
we like that. We like the we stuff.
We're a big club, if not the biggest club. So
Agreed.
We should be winning. And we should want to win, expect to win, and enjoy winning. So I'd like to see that mentality back in the squad. Enjoy winning, expect to win. Go to Saints, go to some of those difficult places. It used to be. You know, I'm going to say it's Hull KR away now is a difficult trip.
Is, yeah.
Catalan's a difficult trip. Roll your sleeves up and get stuck in and expect to win and enjoy it when you do.
Yeah. Line speed, Chris, over recent years have been something that's irked many Leeds fans. But when we had Ash Hanley on the pod, he said it wasn't something specifically that Rowan kind of asked the team to do. It just happened, and now Brad Arthur's sort of going to put a stop to that.
Yeah,
hope for this year.
It's totally different. He's telling them to join the marker, isn't it? Whereas I don't think Rowan did. So I don't think it was be passive. I think it's just because he wasn't telling them to do that. I think, just to skip back a little bit to what Barry was talking about, I think Brad Arthur's 100% the right coach for this group of players. I think they needed a kick up the arse, and they probably all admit that, won't they? That they need some tough love. So like Rowan would probably be at the wrong time. I think he could have been successful with a bit like Bluey.
Yeah, I was just going to say
so
that.
So you've got somebody that he's not managing the team like a normal manager.
No.
I think so. We needed somebody like Brad to come in. And the line speed is totally different.
Yeah.
We dominated. I know it's only friendly. You can't really. Well, you can't read anything into the result.
Yeah,
you can see
treble.
You can see what's changed, and they dominated Wigan's pack.
They did, and Sean O'Loughlin more or less said that in the after match press conference. However, we're going to go into Tenerife today or tomorrow, so you wouldn't want to miss that trip. So they may be slightly distracted with 6 days in the sun.
They didn't look
like any of us would be.
They didn't look like.
Just going back to that though, with the coaches though, that's a great point, because Darryl Powell picked up, although there were Dean Lance in between Graham Murray and Darryl Powell. Darryl Powell picked up on the work that Graham Murray had done. Tony Smith picked up on Powell's hard work. Tony Smith had a lot of success and then handed that over to Bluey, and then when Bluey's time with the squad ran out, Barrie McDermott came, and Brian capitalised on all that great work. I don't know what everyone's thoughts on Barrie McDermott is, but I think Barrie McDermott has to be one of the most successful coaches. Has to get that respect, has to get that credibility.
I agree. Yeah.
He's sometimes I used to think, mate, that he's a Leeds man when he wins, and then he's that bloke from Bradford when we lost, and he suffered from that a little bit, But I think he was somebody who cared about the club, he cared about the players, spent a lot of time, when I was head of youth, spent a lot of time with the academy and the next players off, the next cabs off the rank, as the expression goes. But it's now apparent that with this group of players, I'm gutted Reece Martin's not going to be part of that.
Yeah.
I know, I've heard you lads talk about it a lot. I think he's going to be a big loss, because he's a kicker, isn't he? He's out. First and foremost, he's a very, very good kicker. But he's a good pro. He's a very good club man. Been to lots of events that he didn't need to be there, and he turns up with his missus because he wants to support whatever's going on. However, on the field, I think the squad needs somebody now to let the Alsatians off the lead and go and let them do some damage.
Yeah. Well, we'll jump on to recruitment. As you mentioned, the squad there. The Rhinos have been really busy, very busy again in the transfer market ahead of this year. 5 new signings joining up with Brad Arthur. We mentioned Sevo there, we briefly mentioned at the top. Ryan Hall's back. Doesn't look to have aged a day, Barry, since he even left Leeds.
He actually loves the sun more than I do. I don't know how he ends up being browner than me.
Yeah.
Must be the coldest countries. Must be fantastic somewhere in Rothwell, somewhere in Alton. Hall is a great bloke. He's a very strange, unique, mesmerising, fascinating character that people around him will feed off.
Yeah.
But he's a great pro, looks after his body. He has a will to win and a desire to compete, because everyone wants to win. Not everybody has the desire to train to win. And Hall, he's got both, so he'd be a great influence around the place. I'm gutted we've lost a winger. I'm gutted, in that back line we're a bit weaker now. However, had Ryan Hall suffered that, I think we'd have lost a little bit more than that impact and those tries and those meters made. He's a good influence on everybody, so I'm delighted to see him back. And I was gutted when he came back from Australia that he didn't come back to Leeds, and there's a whole story around that. I know lots of inside stuff that I've got to keep inside. I've got to keep inside because that's
tell us when we stop recording.
That's the circle of trust. But I'm glad he's back here eventually, and he proved his point. Went to Hull KR and played some phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we signed him now, Chris. That's why he's back.
I'm 100% sure he'll be there next year as well.
Oh, I'm adamant. It'll be a 2 year.
Well, he said, didn't he, that you don't finish on 19 years. So
like OCD, ADHD, he's got the lot.
So
I think. I mean, he looks fit enough to do it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Looks amazing.
Yeah.
He's carved by the gods.
Yeah.
Jake Connor signed from Huddersfield. Obviously, can cover numerous positions: half-back, centre, full-back. Do you think he's going to be?
It was a controversial one, wasn't it? And
yes.
and we discussed this prior to starting the pod. I at first thought a person with a fiery character coming into a culture that needs positive role models and needs people pulling in the right direction, I didn't think it was right. However, I've seen him play on Boxing Day. Mm-hmm. I saw him play yesterday. He only played half a game in both of those games, but he looks bloody good.
He looks
good. Yeah. He's at full-back. He can play 6, centre, all over, can't he?
I was saying to Eddie earlier on, it looks like he's enjoying playing. And I think that's the key.
He's probably enjoying winning.
Yeah, probably. And
when he's winning,
not being in Huddersfield.
Yeah, when he's winning, he's going to be a really good bloke to be around. He's going to need a ball of his own. That is a fact.
Yeah,
he's going to be one of those players that's going to look to do 2 or 3 things in every set of 6, but with a strong disciplinarian behind him, giving him those clear, concise instructions in Brad Arthur. I'm hopeful. I'm hoping I am wrong in my initial assessment.
Well, Eddie was the same. I think I've been quite pragmatic about it, and I think it makes sense. Once it had settled and all the dust had settled about, it's Jake Connor.
Yeah,
I think it made sense to have somebody that talented,
no doubt. And I've known him since he was a kid as well, and I've always seen that talent. I've always seen that raw, aggressive. Give me the ball, I'm going to make things happen. Has he got any better at controlling that? Well, I guess, is he 28, 29? No, he's
28.
older. 20.
He's not in his 30s, is he?
Well, anyway, he's 10 years into his career now, so he should be there or thereabouts on his temperament, on his experience, and being able to utilise that.
Everyone likes a pantomime villain, don't they? But he's ours now.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that.
Oh, no, he's not.
Yeah, nice one. I kind of like that. You know, you do need a bit of that, don't you? But you've got to be delivering the goods to be able to get away with it. You can't.
I think as long as Brad Arthur's
winding
here,
people up, and
I'm happy
be playing
with it.
Crap. Right.
When Brad Arthur's not here, I would worry about Jake Connor then.
But as long as performances are good and as long as he's contributing in a positive way. And I remember the wording of it because I thought about it really, really hard. When I did the interview and when we wrote the piece, I chose my words very carefully, and I said if he can find a way of contributing to the team and people know he's giving absolutely everything for the team, not Jake Connor, for the team, that South Stand and that loyal fan base will love him forever.
We'll back him instantly.
Yeah.
What do you think is his strongest position, Barry?
I don't think we need to know, do we? Because we know he can play centre. I personally think he's great in the centre because he's locked in and he's less mischievous. But then at fullback and standoff, he can be as mischievous as he wants. Yeah, he's got that he's got X factor on it. That's what he's got. He can do things that other players can't.
Yeah. Hopefully, I do want him to prove me wrong, but well, proof will be in the pudding. Keenan Palacia, have I pronounced that right?
Oh, they're off the Guinness now, these two. I'm not surprised because you were rubbish.
Have you given up? Saying you're rubbish at drinking Guinness.
On Cruz Campo now. I don't like Cruz Campo. Do you know why I don't like it? The glass.
Hey, that's exactly the opposite reason that I like it.
So you like it because it's a girl's glass. Well done. Good on you.
Because he wears girls' size shirts.
Girls' glass.
It's like a wine glass.
I think that's why I like it.
Right.
In continental Europe, they drink beer out of a wine glass. Anyway.
Keenan Palacia.
Palacia.
I like it.
Samoa international sign from the Gold Coast. To me, just looks like Kylie Luluai.
I like him.
2.0. Looks
I like
good,
him.
Barry.
I liked what he did in the Boxing Day game. He come up with a couple of really
Big
good
hits,
shots,
yeah.
didn't he? Carried the ball better on where are we now? Sunday. And yeah, he's in the 10 club, so I'm happy with him. Yeah.
Certainly, we always said, well, felt like we've said it for years on this platform about our props needing more props. With Palacia and Jenkins coming in, they'd add two big units to an area where we needed it.
Yeah. We'll get on to recruitment, but I'm happy with where those two players are and how they will come in. It's a bit of healthy competition for the players like Mick. I'm expecting a lot from Tom. I want Tom desperate. I'm touching wood here as we speak.
He looks like a monster, doesn't he?
He is a monster, that's why. He's a monster eater. He'd find monsters and gobble them up.
His diet is monster.
He just needs to keep fit, doesn't he? He needs to string.
Is that the biggest thing for Tom, Barry?
Yeah, definitely.
Just to play, that's it.
Listen, as a young forward, you're going to go through 5 or 6 years early on of smashing your body to bits if you're doing it properly. Because then you learn by your mistakes, by your injuries, by all the things that go wrong, what your body can and can't do. And if you're not doing that, I don't think you're true to the role and the position. And it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed since 1895.
No,
you've got to be the bloke that anybody wearing 8 or 10, they're the big numbers that everybody looks to set the standards in toughness, in that mental toughness and being able to take that challenge forward. So yeah, we brought a couple in. Mikolai, Tom will hopefully step up. I want to see Tom get at least 20 games in and get good minutes you know, I can tell you now from the player's psyche, he's had his number taken off him. That'll kick him in the bollocks. That'll hurt him. That'll hurt him. And it would have hurt me, and you know, I got picked and dropped and all the various levels of rugby I played in, and whenever I got dropped and whenever I got a disappointment in front of me, it only made me work harder. And I'm hoping that Tom's got that mentality and thinks I'll fucking show you.
Yeah, I'll show you. Take my number off.
Well, it's like you talk about recruitment. That's him and Gannon is like having two new new signings anyway.
He looked great yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
He looked great.
It looks like he's put some bulk on. He's a classy player, isn't he? And I'm hoping that he can.
I never got the 6 thing with him under.
No.
Yeah,
no
I never got that. But
only Rowan.
Yeah.
No one got that.
Yeah, he the best position. So the game's always evolving and it's always changing. What you need at least 4 players that can play in the back row and the centre in your squad.
Yeah.
Because those players are all interchangeable. But what's going to be the new fashion is that Elliot Minchella type of loose forward who can ball play, who can rack up 35, 40 tackles, can cover and has a massive, great workload and engine and an ability to be in that. It's unfortunate for Arjad that he's not going to be part of the first couple of weeks, but that's a role he can fulfil.
Yeah. They are all fit, Chris. The 4 props we have: Palacia, Oledsky, Holroyd, and Jenkins. Which 2 do you think should start? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters, does it?
Well, it'll be Palacia and Oledsky. Mick looks in fine fettle, and he just needed some help. I don't know whether you agree.
He needed some
help for 2 years.
Yeah.
He's been doing nigh on 80 minutes.
Yeah,
making all them meters. He just looks fresh. It'll be Palacia and Oledsky. I think there's Sam Lissoni as well, isn't there? So you've got Lissoni, Jenkins, and Tom, and little Tom.
Yeah, Nicholas and Warren.
And I do like him as well.
Yeah,
I think he's got great potential. He's brilliant with the ball, and he's got all those assets you need as a running forward. He's just not quite got the awareness in defence. He looks lost a lot of the time in defence.
He's still
is he 19? Is he 20? Something like that. I know he's very young, but he's a player with good potential. I don't think we'll get to a position, I might be wrong, where we're playing another prop at loose forward. The bench, you talked about the makeup of the team, and does it matter? The bench of teams is going to look different. It was different all last year. I can never remember any time in the 30 odd years I've been in the game teams carrying wingers unless they had nobody else.
Yeah.
Now you've got to carry an outside back.
Yeah.
You've got to carry somebody that can cover those positions, because an head injury and you're absolutely stuffed.
That utility
because
option.
you're playing back rowers at standoff, or you're playing second rowers in on the wing, and it causes absolute chaos unless you get that balance of that bench right.
Our problem last year is we didn't have any props.
No,
there was some game. Was it Warrington?
Warrington at Magic.
I turned around to you and I said, "We ain't got a prop.
We didn't have a prop
pitch.
on. I think because we had Sangare, Lasone.
That was it.
And then did they go off? And then it would Arjad and
Scott Donald and
Donaldson.
Yeah, Donaldson. Sorry, Scott. Donald.
Prop. There were no.
Scott Donald.
Scott
Jamie
Donald.
Donaldson. I brought Scott Donald back from 2008.
What a player!
Yeah.
What a player.
Of the new signings, then, Chris, who are expecting to?
I think
to be the star of
Palacier is going to be
Palacier.
Palacier, if you want, yeah. He's going to be a great signing. I've still got high hopes for that young kid, Cooper Jenkins. He looks athletic and fast. Sprinter, innit?
Do you agree, Barry? What do you think of the new sign going to be?
I do like Keenan Palacier. I'm not sure about Cooper Jenkins. On the 2 games that I've watched him, he's gone off in both, so I'll reserve judgment on those 2. But it's just good having big bodies in your squad. As you said, you probably need 5 big men in your squad. You need 2 to play, 2 to be injured, and 1 to be banned.
Yeah. He looks Palacier looks. He looks like he could play big minutes, and he's good in defence. He throws himself around, doesn't he? I think he's going to be a great signing.
He's going to hurt some people.
Yes.
He's really going to hurt some people. Brad Arthur signed a 1-year deal with the Rhinos ahead of the 2025 season. What have you made of Brad since it's been over?
Everything he's done, everything he's done has been positive, and I do like him. I like his approach. I like that Aussie mentality. I don't think he understands the competition, the club, how big Leeds is, how different it is to Australia, and I'm trying to say it in a way that if he gets to understand that, some Aussies come over and they don't give a shit. They're like, well, it's not Australia. I'm here. I'm doing this, and then I'm buggering off back. With him only having that short stay, it had a smell of that at first, but the longer he's been here, he's committed to this season. So if he embraces us, the city, and he lives in the city as well, he's here now. And I will say this: winning covers a multitude of sins. If we manage to get somewhere and we manage to do something, and he enjoys, because let's be honest, the best nights at Headingley are those sunny nights when it's 9:30, 10:15 at night. It's still light. We've won. Kids are on the pitch. Yeah. You have 4 or 5 drinks down your neck, or is that just me when I'm on Sky?
It's just you.
You 4 or 5 drinks down your neck. You don't want to go anywhere because you're like, this is brilliant. Let's just wallow in this a little bit. Once he's got half a dozen of them under his belt, he'll think, yeah, it's all right.
And,
it's not bad.
And to be fair, we haven't had any like that for him.
No.
Might have had a couple here and there, and I think if we can get a good start, I think that's imperative, and get some of them games, like you say, with that atmosphere. I think we'll get bigger crowds as well.
Yeah.
They'll start coming back. I think we've dropped a few thousand, haven't we?
Yeah.
As soon as we start winning,
there's a bit of disenchantment, disillusionment, if that's the right word, and people are entitled to do that. But again, winning covers a multitude of sins, and everybody's back on board and they're enjoying those balmy nights. I feel blessed that during my time I had times where we were on our arse in 95 and 6, and we were that far off getting relegated in the first Super League. But after that, and particularly the 98, 99, 04, 05, I get in my car and I think we're winning. There's no problem about that. It's just by how many and how much of an involvement I'm going to get within this game,
and who's going to get a crack,
and who's on my list.
Did you used to have a list?
Oh, I had a list. Anybody wearing 8 or 10 was on the list anyway.
Because I saw Adrian Morley having a
his
TV
Black
show.
It's a great story, that, isn't it? Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Did you have? Did people? Because
it was it was like the Yellow Pages for those of a certain age. Yeah, no, every game, and I had a couple of rivals that were.
Did you?
That were common thread. that were always there. But yeah, it was the job. When I came into the game, it was imperative that us as a pack got over their pack. We gained the ground. We kept their important players quiet, and that were very physical at the time.
Did your teammates come to you and say, put an arm around you and say, Barry, this so-and-so on the opposition, you need to get stuck into him today?
No. Nobody said nothing.
It was just your...
The only coach that ever said anything was Ian Millward. Can you recall the Lancashire Yorkshire?
Yeah.
Ian Millward was coaching Lancashire. Bizarre, yeah. Aussie Ian Millward. And the first one, and between Ian Millward... Oh, sorry, it was the second one. Not the first one, the second one. Between Ian Millward and I can't remember who was coaching Yorkshire. They'd sort of had a bit of a discussion and said, we need to do the state of origin thing. We need to get a couple of brawls going. And Ian Millward said, look, I've heard that they're gonna, first scrum kick it off. I think we should beat them to it. We should kick it off. And he said it in a room like this, pointed at me. Are you all right with that, Barry? And I thought it was a test. I thought it was a test. I thought if I say yeah, it means I'm out of the side. And he said it 2 or 3 times. And Andy Farrell, obviously doing great things in rugby union now, Faz said to Ian Millward, you do know who you're talking to there. You don't need to tell him. And you especially don't need to tell him more than once.
3 times.
Yeah.
He's going to kill someone.
Yeah.
Would you...
and I did.
Would you bring it back?
The biff?
No. Yorkshire, Lancashire.
The biff has gone forever, sadly.
Yeah, you won't get that back.
Would I bring Yorkshire, Lancashire? I like the probables and possibles way of doing it. I really do, because it muddies the water too much, Lancashire and Yorkshire, and you end up, we had a guy called Don Peters play for us for Lancashire. He was from bloody London. He was London Broncos player from bloody Brentford or something like that. Lancashire's not that big. So I think if we did a probables and a possibles and make it a trial effectively for the international, I still think we should have Great Britain and underneath that England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and then we won't have to keep pissing about with players playing England one year and Ireland another and Wales.
I just want it back for the shirt.
Yeah, the shirt alone.
That's it. Yeah. And the badge.
Yeah.
What do you think? Back to 2025.
Sorry, we just jumped back on it. 2003.
It's worth it though. What do you think some of Brad Arthur's biggest challenges might be ahead of this year?
Understanding the game, understanding the mentality, understanding it's not the NRL, and I love it, the fact that it's been so tough in pre-season. I've watched a lot of the footage, I've watched the Spirit of the Rhinos stuff. It's brilliant. That inside's brilliant. I'm lucky I get to see a lot of it anyway, but I do watch everything, whether it's Leeds or NRL teams. There's been a couple of good ones. I watched the Manly one not long ago, but what I do think is, in Australia, that kind of tough regime, that tough pre-season, making it really, really taxing, he's probably got a squad of 40 players, and he can bring 2 in if he loses 2 through injury. He's not got that luxury here. And his challenges are that, just getting to grips with the way that we do things. I don't think he gives a toss about the history, because it's irrelevant to him. He doesn't know anybody's name in the competition, which can be a strength, can't it? Let's be honest. He's not fearful of Wigan, or he's not fearful of going to Saints because of the reputation that they've got of never write off the Saints. He don't give a toss, so that can be a strength. But understanding his home and his backyard, I'm pretty sure he's getting to grips with it now, and I'm pretty sure. I haven't personally had a sit down. I've met him a few times. I will grab some time with him, and I'm a fan of what he's brought so far, and I think his challenges will be getting the best out of the group rather than just at all costs you've got to do. Because sometimes it's a case of putting a coach can put all his stuff into the team, but if they don't understand it, it's worthless. Sometimes looking at the team and saying, how do I get the best out of my troops is the best way to go. I'm not saying he's got to make a decision one way or the other. It might be different times for different ways of doing it.
What do you think, Chris, some of the biggest challenges for Arthur this year?
I think, like Barry says, it's a total shift for him, isn't it? And I think that's going to be a strength. I think it's good. I think it's good for Leeds, and this might be a bit not controversial, but
you never said anything controversial in your life.
No, well, this isn't that controversial anyway. I'm not going to. But I think it's good that he probably doesn't know the Leeds, the golden generation, and all that. Sometimes it can be an albatross around your neck, can't it?
I absolutely agree, and I think that's been the case for the last 10 years.
I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
But I think.
Do you think also the fact he's only here for 1 year currently? It could be like, look, I'm Mr. Here and Now.
I think that's what we need, though, isn't it? We don't need
success now.
How many rebuilds have we had? How many?
9.
We've got the squad to be up challenging.
Yeah.
For the treble.
This year, I think. Anyway, it's just I think him, but only being here for a year, possibly more. We don't know, do we? I think it's going to be strength because he's going to want to win, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's not going to get a gig in NRL if he comes and we bomb him down at bottom.
I think he will.
I think he still will.
I think he will because it's not about cash and money and wages and stuff, but a good assistant coaching role in the NRL will comfortably be on more money than a lot of the head coaches.
I think he'll.
Yeah. I don't know what he's been paid, and it's irrelevant to me. I absolutely agree about the point you're making with the golden generation, because it's 10 years this year since the golden generation. I know we won it in 2017.
Yeah,
it's 10 years since the golden, because 2016 and 18 were dreadful, weren't they?
Yeah.
So for those 10 years, we've been trying to find the new JP, the new Kylie, new Kev. It's not helpful when you're trying to swap like for like.
And the irony is, we've got a Diskin, we've got a
we have, yeah,
Semfield, and Jones Buchanan in there.
Yeah, Lee Smith's lad as well. Isn't
Yeah, Lee Smith's lad.
Yeah.
So it's gone full circle. But I think it's been needed for a while. Just stop comparing them to that. You're never going to be them, are you? And I think it's gone on for too long. And I think they just need to carve their own identity. And I think he's strong enough to do it.
Yeah.
Because he's never been involved. He probably never even seen bloody Golden Generation or care
or know anything about them.
Yeah, so I think that's his challenge to get their own identity.
You watched the Spirit of the Rhino, and a part of that was the London away game when Brad Arthur gave absolute pelters to Tom Nicholson-Wotton.
Tom called him a dickhead, didn't he?
Yeah, because he called him a dickhead or something because he made an error. As fans, well, I'll speak for myself, I felt that was refreshing to kind of hear someone kind of, because we never see that as fans. That you may have some more insight, but are you more of a fan of that hard nose, like in the dressing room? You've made a mistake, because it seemed earlier on in the documentary under Rowan, he was more philosophical and like, we've made some errors, but we'll come back from it. Whereas Brad Arthur was like, I'm not here to babysit you. You've made an error. Don't do that. Do you think that the Rhinos
again? It comes down to your cattle, doesn't it? What do those players need at that at that specific time? Sometimes it's warranted. I had my fair share of it, and I were around people who had the same. But if it's constantly carrot, or cuddle, or it's constantly stick and harsh and shouting and it's humiliating as a player when you're sat there. You don't need anybody telling you that you've dropped the ball, missed the tackle, or missed your assignment. But when you're pulled in front of the players around you, there's no mistaking that everyone else knows. So we'll wait and see. I think coaches sometimes are harder on younger players to make a point to the squad because they're an easy target. I don't believe that's the case with Brad Arthur. I think he'd say it to anybody because, as I've said, he doesn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So everybody's of an equal level of stature and respect. But I quite respect that as well. That nobody's above the station and nobody deserves or gets any more respect unless you do what you're supposed to do on the field. I really like him. And I like the fact that putting myself in the shoes of young Tom, I'd want to please him. And I know that sounds a bit sort of wishy-washy, but he's got that really fine balance of you wanting to say, well done, and being scared to death of him.
Yeah.
Because you know he's got that stick in his back pocket and he's going to whack you if you do something wrong. So it's getting that balance right. I think at the minute it looks like it's getting the best out of everybody, and Tom's got a lot to learn, and as long as he's getting that support and that education and time to grow, he's going to be a great player. But you've got to take your licks, you've got to take your medicine. If you mess up, but don't expect people to say it's all right.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just a bit of honesty.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy it, Chris? That kind of harsher side, the contrast between.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? And
it was mad. The difference was.
But there was I think we spoke about it before, but there was one bit that really stuck out for me. I think did he go over to Cam, or did he ask the players what you did wrong or something? And they answered, and he might have swore. Yeah. You usually will done. It says, well, you don't fucking need me to tell you, do you?
You know this.
You know exactly what you need to be doing.
Just do it.
Just do it. And I think that's quite refreshing, isn't it?
Yeah.
He obviously trusts the players. He wouldn't have been here. He'd have gone back home. If he didn't think
after the initial.
Yeah, if he didn't think they were worth.
I think Bleasy deserves some credit. Bleasy came in. Within 5-6 days, he's made the decision that everybody thought was imminent and was coming from somewhere else. He's gone, boom, that's what we need to do. We move on. And then, I forget the timescales, Chev had him for like 6 weeks maybe, might have been a bit longer. And then Brad Arthur's in. And that's all down to Ian Blease.
Yeah.
So, Blease is a bit like me. He's a red rose. He's from over the border there, but he brings a lot of knowledge, and with everything that's happening with Sivo now, what he's got is a track record of them dealings and wheeler dealer things that he'll come up with the solution, because he knows how to sell a quid.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy, isn't he? We did pod with him. We could have done it for hours. Just what Leeds needed.
Yeah.
And he's unearthed some gems from the NRL. Brodie Croft, Jackson Hastings, Tim Laffey. Is that one of his?
Yeah.
Signed him.
So I'd say so.
He's got the proofs in the pudding for Leeds as well. With his.
It's different at Leeds. You're not at Salford. You're not trying to cobble it together and sell it and buy it off the back of a market stall. You're at Marks and Spencer's, aren't you? You're at Selfridges.
And this is with the Paul Rowley stuff. I think this has always been my doubt about that it's a different ball game, isn't it? Mm. He's not under the same pressures. He's under pressures, but not the pressures you get as a Leeds coach.
You have to win. You have to win. And I described it to Bleasy like this. I said, we grew up in the 70s, 80s, watching Wigan win and dominate everything.
Yeah, we're boring.
Everybody hated Wigan.
Still do.
I couldn't possibly comment on that, but everybody hated Wigan, and they reluctantly, when they won, said, well, they're the best team. And I personally, I did 3 years at Oldham, wanted to stay at my own town. When I got the chance to leave, I was only going one place, and it was Wigan, because they were the best. Yeah. I went with gritted teeth and didn't last that long, but the attitude that everybody in Lancashire has towards Wigan, everybody has it in Leeds. In Yorkshire. Everybody wants Leeds to fail. Everybody revels in that failure and loves to watch the big city, the big city rich boys trip up. But it's actually, when you're in here, you know that when it clicks and when it's right, it's glorious and it's the best place to be. However, not only have you got to win, you've got to win in style, you've got to score points, you've got to beat people up, you've got to be physical, you've got to be fast, you've got to be, playing with flair and all those things. But it's hard, but it brings out the best in some and makes others crumble. Right, Absolutely.
You reap the rewards.
Absolutely.
We'll open to the floor. We do have an audience with us for some questions. Anybody got a question for Barry? David? I'll have to repeat it because there's no mic, but... Go for it, go for it.
I'll ask them individually. So the first one is, there's been a lot of talk around captains in the last couple of years, whether it's Ash or Cam or Cam or a leadership group and things like that. But in your time as a player, who was your best captain and why?
Who was your best captain and why?
I'm spoilt, me. I had some great people around me. For Great Britain, Andy Farrell was immense, because Faz could run round you, he could out sprint you, he could outthink you, he could outfight others, not not me, but he could outfight you.
No one could outfight
you. He could kick goals, he could pass the ball, but he didn't do, in his leadership skill, he didn't ask anybody to do anything he wasn't prepared to do himself. I had Yestin Harris, who was a silky player who would win games and step forward when it all got a bit rocky and we're at Bradford away and we're two behind or two in front and it's like, shit, we're going to lose this game if we don't play in the right way. Yestin would step forward, and his on-field stuff and his off-field stuff, because he was a good pro, and then the captain that I stayed with the longest, Kev, was just, an unbelievable person that nobody could ever get anywhere near. You aspired to be the best you could be in every element of life, and it would be, if you drew a picture of it, it'd be Kev Sinfield. But what it did is it I know Jonesy's got an expression about rising tides raises all boats, and that's a fact. I was blessed to be in a car with Yestin and Kev, and then just me and Kev. And my diet was better, my routine was better, my focus was better, and then the bits that I was doing before and after training was always improved and increased because of those people. So I guess the original question is, within that setup now, who's the captain? Who's the right person to be making the calls? Well, I don't believe we've got an out-and-out captain, because who in that changing room, who in that dressing room won't ask anybody to do something that they're not prepared to do? Who in that dressing room is somebody that steps forward when the game? I know I'm combining three captains here. Who in that dressing room? The best player that ever existed. that wins games for you, and then who is impeccable in his preparation and impeccable in his standards and his professionalism. So I don't know that player ever will exist. But that's what your captain has to look like. He has to be the hardest trainer. He has to be the bloke that says the right thing, does the right thing, and that everybody listens to.
Just on Kev, was it obvious he was captain material?
Absolutely.
From just it's just
absolutely.
So as soon as he got the armbands, it's definitely Kev.
And we put, myself and Yestin was. Because I'll rewind all the way back. So when Kevin's sort of 14, 15 years of age and not able to drive, when Ray's dad couldn't pick him up, I'm getting a phone call thinking, I'm getting a phone call from Ray saying, we take little Kevin to training. I'm thinking, why have I been lumbered taking little 14-year-old babysitting Kevin, driving him round? Well, I spent a little bit of time with him and thought, this is an impressive young man. And then he grew, and even though he wasn't particularly vocal as a captain at first, because people won't remember, I think it was 2004 or 3 when he was given
2003. And I can remember thinking it were a mistake.
Yeah, because he didn't have that presence. But what he had is he had people around him, and he had a leadership role, but was given the captain's armband. But there was a number of us, Dave Fern and myself. Yeah. I'm trying to think who else was in that sort of group, and we took the responsibility of some of the other stuff because it's not just on the field and it's not just in training. You have a whole manner of responsibilities as a captain, because Leeds is a corporate club and does all those things, and you've got to say and do the right things.
Yeah, was that when Andrew Doonerman was there? I thought he
Dooners,
had
Dooners was there in 4, I think.
4. Wasn't he there 03?
I
remember him getting his shirt ripped off in that semi-final Challenge Cup. I also thought he was a great signing, just to lead some of them young kids.
Yeah.
He was a good player as well,
Good. I'll tell you a story now. So Dooners didn't play in the 2004 Grand Final.
No.
Tony Smith never picked the same team twice in that 2004 year. There was 22, 23 players that were all fighting, scratching, biting to get in those 17 shirts. Not necessarily with each other, but anything we could do to gain the edge to get in that side is what we were doing. Hence the healthy competitiveness within that squad meant that you had to be on top of your game or you didn't get picked, and he didn't pick the same team until it got to the final. Dooners, I think, rolled his ankle and was fit for the game, the semi-final. Who did we beat? Did we beat Saints to get to the? I think we beat Saints at Saints, and then we played Wigan, having lost to Wigan.
Yeah.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Then we played Bradford. Having lost to Bradford. That's right. But Dooners was fit, and Tony Smith didn't pick him because he picked the same team in the semis he did in the final.
First time in season.
And Dooners was the most helpful teammate. He did all he could for, you know, the younger players, the Rob Burrows, the Danny Maguires who were in the biggest game of their careers. He did everything he could to make sure that those players were ready. I'll never forget that. So Dooners, as well as being a great player, was just a good bloke and somebody. When you talk about team first mentality, I at whatever I was, 31, 32, I thought, I need to remember that for when I don't get picked for a game. I didn't realise it was going to be about 6 months later at Cardiff, but anyway. But I very much looked at what he did and how he carried himself and thought that's the way to handle it.
That's the standard.
Yeah.
Have you got a second question?
Yeah, it's not playing related, it's not what you're doing now. So you're on Sky Sports now, and can you tell us a bit about how you found that transition into television, the good bits, the bad bits, the other bits, and do you have to catch yourself sometimes when you're almost being biased towards Leeds, or does that bother you anymore?
Don't bother him.
We talk about the we now here.
Yeah.
You can't really say we on TV, can you?
Well, my mate Jim at the back of the room on the tall stool, looking very macho, works with me on Sky, and there's quite a few of us who support a certain club. So no, because what I try and do is I try and do my job properly. I try and do it with honesty and integrity. My journey in this job, so it's not my full-time job, Sky. I've always had other jobs. Even when I was a part-time rugby player with Oldham, I've always worn more than one hat during a working week. So that's what I do now. But rugby league is my life, so it's my hobby. It's what I do when I'm sat at home doing nothing. I'm looking at things that will help me give a better version of the game. Excuse me. When I'm describing it on TV, but I did a lot of radio. I did a lot of GMR as it was back then. I did a lot of radio leads with JD. JD probably started me off. Did a lot of Radio 5 with Pikey, who I work with on Sky now, and I did a column for the Metro, column for the Rugby magazine. I've done things all the way through my career, and I always describe it like I've never courted, I've never wanted to be in the limelight. I've just always found myself in it. So I've learned to embrace it, and I've learned to try and do what I hope is a decent job while I'm in it. So how was the transition? Very bumpy. Very bumpy. I've said many things that I wish I could take back, and I'll tell you the worst one, right? The worst one. Harry Jepson was a wonderful human being, and I spent a lot of time with Harry, and I loved spending time with him. His knowledge of the history of the game and the club was just, again, mesmerising. I'd sit there and I'd go, how do you remember all that, Harry? And he'd go, oh yeah, and you know, he'd tell you all the surrounding details of that story. And when he sadly passed away, I used to say, oh Harry, you can tell me who won the Challenge Cup final in 1948, but you can't tell me what colour your underwear is at the minute. So Eddie, who's a lovely bloke, asked me, oh, you know, Harry, you know, what did he mean to this club? And I give a really good sort of short eulogy about him. But then I said, thinking I was funny, but he could tell you who won the Challenge Cup final in 1946, but he couldn't tell you what colour his underwear was. Eddie covered the mic with his hands and said, he's not even been passed away a couple of days and you're making jokes. I had to cover my mic and said, no, that was our joke. We used to say it all the time. We used to laugh. And he said to me after, he said, in jokes don't work on TV, Barry, because nobody else gets it.
No one else gets it.
And nobody now is there to corroborate your story. So I learned a very valuable lesson that day. But in terms of being biased, I just play it straight, because when Leeds play badly, I will say, yes, they play badly, this is why. If I within that credit the players and the team that's been against us, then that's because they deserve it. And if that makes the Terraces think he's biased against us, then I can't help that. If that makes the opposition go, he's biased for his own team, I can't help that. I can only do it. I can only do it the way that I think is right and proper, and respect the job and the role, and that's what I try and do.
Have you ever had a player approach or speak to or text you around a comment, be it positive or negative? That's something that
I've had a couple of coaches. And what usually happens is they go to Tez. I can't believe we've been talking for an hour and we've not mentioned Big
We're
Ed.
hoping to get through.
Yeah, yeah. They've usually gone through him and said, "Tell your mate he's out of order." When he said, "Well, I don't know," but I have had a few coaches in my time.
Really? Yeah.
Players, not really. I'm not sure how much notice players take anyway.
Because it must be hard for the players. They've got enough to contend with social media and shit they get on there.
Yeah.
So
it's different now. I know when I were playing, Steve-O often said, "He's got to go for that. It's disgraceful. He should be red carded." And at the time, he's got me sent off him. But on reflection, I've realised I was just a dirty bastard, and he was probably right.
Probably like you took the bloke's head off, not what Steve-O was saying in commentary.
Steve-O was Eddie and Steve-O were an institution, and Jim knows this. I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with both of them. I'm meeting Eddie for breakfast next week. We always get together 3 or 4 times a year, and Eddie will tell us, me and Tez, this is, by the way, what we need to do, what we're doing wrong. He's still in his own way mentoring us, but what he's doing is that constructive criticism.
It's interesting when you watch old games back and there's Eddie and Steve-O, you forget how good they were.
Yeah, they were brilliant.
And
brilliant.
Because they got a load of stick, didn't they?
Yeah.
Like everyone does that's on TV, whatever.
Yeah.
But then you sort of don't know what you've got till it's gone.
No.
Not having a go at the current commentators, but it's...
Have a go.
I think Eddie in particular...
John Wilkin.
I think Eddie in particular was one of the best.
Eddie,
as
a professional, and when you worked with him and alongside him, and you realised his scripts, he wrote all his own scripts, his delivery, his timing,
it were perfect.
And the big moments, and Wide to West will forever be iconic. And it was a great try. Of course, it was a great try, but it was the commentary that makes the try great. And he obviously came up with a never write off the Saints, and that's. Every game that you go to, there's flags, and it's actually written on the walls in the gym, never write off the Saints. But Eddie's preparation and what I'd learned in my rugby career, I took on to my broadcasting career. And I just want to do the right thing by the game and hope that the people sat at home don't pick the remote up, or they don't pick the phones up now. That's the other distraction everyone's got. Eddie was fantastic and still is, and Steve-O for all that Tez and myself were there to effectively take over him. He couldn't have been any more generous and accommodating and kind and helpful.
Duncan, have you got
Are you going to ask this question?
Who's the biggest ego that you've ever played with?
biggest ego you've ever played with?
Biggest ego.
So
Biggest
someone
ego.
walked in and like, wow, this shit, and you thought he's a wanker. Someone that think they need knocking down.
Delivered only as Duncan can.
So was your question there, who's the biggest wanker or biggest ego?
Well,
That's gonna be my first question.
I'll answer the biggest ego. Jamie Matthew had the biggest ego.
Really?
Jamie Matthew had a massive ego. Yeah. But he got his place in the team, kept his place in the team, and although he had that edge to him, and it is fair to say I never really clicked with him, but I think his ego was his. I can never understand when people have this overwhelming confidence in their ability that they don't really have. But Jimmy was probably the biggest ego I came across. Who was the biggest one? Have I mentioned Tez O'Connor? Yeah. Jim's nodding his head and applauding at the back. My mate from Sky. He was both. He's
got his head in his hands.
He was both the biggest in size and the biggest in stature wanker that there's in the game, and still is.
Has anyone else got a question?
Yeah, going off your previous comment about interest in the sport, what do you think is needed? Is it fan experience? Is it more creativity on the pitch? Personality on the pitch, off the pitch? What do you think's needed?
What a good question.
It is a good question. Do we need to repeat the question for the people that are listening on Tuesdays and Thursdays?
How do we change the game? Is it fan engagement? Is it personalities of players? Or
it's a very intelligent question from one of the ladies in the room. Thank you. Not who's the biggest wanker.
From Duncan.
So the answer is all of the above. So we have, if you chop the fan base up into two sections, under 35 and over 35, we do okay in the over 35, and I'm 52. People of my age are still watching the game. They're watching it on dodgy boxes, which doesn't do anything for the Sky subscriptions, but that's another problem. They're watching the game, they're passionate about the game, they know the ins and outs of it. Some people sway more towards the NRL, some people do both, and some people are only Super League. It's the under 35s that we've got to get engaged in our game. So it is fan engagement, it is that social media element of our game.
Podcasts.
It's podcasts. My favourite I love podcasts. My favourite podcast is Stick to Football, and I'm not a football fan.
You didn't say the Lock Pod?
My second favourite podcast. Second favourite is Stick to Football. I love it because it's characters. Yeah. It's Roy Keane, it's Gary Neville, Scholesy, who's a mate of mine, lives at the back of me, and I love listening to their stories. However, we haven't quite got that in our sport, so we need to do the
you need
things
to launch
that we.
A podcast.
I'd love to. I haven't got the budget for it, nor is there anybody queuing up to pay for it.
Either.
But yeah, I'd love to, and I think we need to promote the players, but there's a reluctance from players because we're a team sport. Let's take somebody like Harry Newman, who's a very, he's an individual within a team sport, innit? He does anything individual, and people like me and people like you sat on the I don't like that, because he's seen to come out of the team environment and he's putting his head above that parapet, as they say. So there's a bit on the players, there's a bit on the coaches to allow the players to express their personalities. The clubs need to promote that. I think the media managers, some are good, some are media managers, and what their job is to protect the player from being in the headlines. So it's all of the above. But we've got to keep trying, haven't we? We've got to try more things. We've got to try doing the things that we do more and be better at it.
I've always said, haven't I, Eddie, that the rugby league is the most clippable sport.
Oh, it's
and
made
what I mean
for
by
social
that
media.
Is that
Big
in one game,
kicks, passes.
In one game, there's 100 clips you could.
Yeah.
30-second clips. Mm. And they'd all be immense, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Even in a poor game, there'll be a big hit, won't there?
There's clips.
There'll be some controversy, or there'll be...
Yeah.
We often see it when, particularly around this time of year, when there's a Six Nations, and a Six Nations winger or centre will score a diving try in the corner, and it gets
they'll go, this is the most amazing try ever.
And we're all here.
I've seen 4 of them.
And we see that.
Yeah, we've seen that in
every
Championship
single week.
Yeah.
But we just don't have that.
But yeah,
for whatever reason.
I think one point, I think we don't make enough of the players, but you've sort of explained why. But I don't think that's just a rugby league problem. If you go back 20 years, I bet you could name some England rugby union players. I couldn't. None of them are household names, really, are they anymore? And it's a difficult thing because football dominates, doesn't it? So it's hard for those players to become celebrities, which is what's needed.
Yeah, more limelight.
If we all collectively, as fans, try to promote the game within. I mean, I do the social platforms, and I accidentally ended up on Twitter, and I'm now on nearly all of them. But if we do our best to promote the game, and everybody brings somebody else in, at some point, like the evangelist, that I'm trying to think of the religions that bring people in, them people who are knocking on your door, trying to sell you Jehovah's Witness, who are trying to sell you Bibles and stuff like that. If we tried really hard, I still don't think we'd make a dent in that sporting consciousness. At one point, and I might be going back to my era or possibly before that, it was everybody's second game.
Yeah.
You know what everybody's second game is now? Darts.
And darts is shit.
Well, it's entertaining, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's entertaining. Now, we've got to see what works and what has worked in darts and try and nick a bit of that and bring that stardust.
Yeah, it's become...
Bring that stardust. And I don't think it's an individual. I don't think it's the Hearns. I don't think it's an individual that can come in. We just need somebody, and I'm going back a long time here, but my mind goes back and my memory goes back to somebody like Maurice Lindsay, who made some really unpopular decisions at the time. Without him, we wouldn't have Super League. And it needs somebody to put the balls on the block and say, we're doing this.
It's a bit,
you don't like
it's a bit parochial, though, isn't it, rugby league? So, like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So, look at IMG. I'm a big supporter of it because I think it needed to happen. But then you get people moaning, don't you? So it's like you try to progress it, and because rugby league is what it is, everyone moans about it. But you're right, you just need someone to... And I think IMG will work if they stick to it. It's just whether... They just don't need to dilute it down. Personally, I think they just need to stick to it and stop chopping and changing and stick to that plan and go for it. But yeah, it's... I also think we downplay it as strength and that we have got that northern grit. It's not always a bad thing that it's a northern sport. I don't think we play to it. You try dilute it, don't you, and say, oh, we've got London, we've got this, which is great. I'm not saying it isn't. But why don't
play to your strengths?
Why don't you play to your strengths a bit? It's everyone loves a breakaway and everyone loves a breakaway biscuit, Eddie. Everyone loves a challenger or something that does something different, and that's what rugby league were born from. Yeah. So why are you not pushing that more?
Here's an expression for you. I've been in the game, what am I now, 52? I've got 35 years. At sort of this level. Geez, that's a long time, isn't it? 35 years. And when I joined it, it was on its arse and it was about to go into bankruptcy and it was about to go out of existence. And I've come to the conclusion that in 1895, because of an argument, rugby league was born. Yep. And we've been arguing with ourselves ever since.
And it's been dying every year.
Arguing Game's with ourselves, though. Nobody else.
Ever since.
No.
Has anyone else got a question?
In your entire playing career, what's your biggest ever regret?
Biggest regret in your playing career?
Ooh.
Wow. That's a good question.
I don't think I've got many regrets. How can I regret anything when I'm sat here now?
On the lot pot.
On a Monday night.
In rainy Leeds.
Talking in front of 1,000 people.
2,000.
Probably... I don't regret any of the red cards. I don't regret any of the...
Never.
No, I will not apologise for any of that.
Thank you.
Absolutely not. I probably wished... And it's not... Harder. Yeah, more often. It's not a regret. I just wished I'd have been part of one of those international teams. I was in 3 Ashes series. And 3 Ashes series. 2 of them were... Two games to 1 in a 3-match Ashes series, and then the third one we lost every game by 2 to 4 points in the last 5-10 minutes, 2, 3, 4 minutes, and they were all heartbreaking. But the point is, we were never that far away from the Aussies. Yeah. We were never battered, beaten. We always were there or thereabouts, and I regret the fact that we couldn't get enough to get one of those wins, because I think when we talk about the growth of the game and what it needs, there's no doubt if we get an international win, that'll make a mark on newsreaders on BBC on a Sunday night, or it'll be, something that people want to know more about. What's this sport? How can I watch that? Because we seem to be okay at international level. And I regret that we didn't manage to do that.
2003, I can remember that one. That's
heartbreaking.
So close,
I could have cried after every game, and I'm never like that. I'm not somebody that's like that emotionally, but I could have cried after every one of them.
The recent World Cup was the biggest miss we've had. Not getting to that final.
No. Samoa had done enough to turn up.
Yeah, but it was engineered for us to try and get there, wasn't it? I don't know whether it was meant to be, but we didn't have to play Australia.
And we still mess it up.
Yeah. And I think we had sort of the country's eyes on us at that point.
Yeah.
And it was such a missed opportunity. I think because I think we could have had a good go at Aussies that year, but just missed out. Seems like we always do, doesn't it?
Moving on to our Super League rivals, just a couple of these for the opposition for the Rhinos next year. The Wigan are still the standard setters?
I think Wigan are favourites to get to the grand final. I'm not sure they'll win the League Leaders' Shield because I think that high intensity level that they played at all year last year, they had the dip in the middle, if you remember it. When you look at the end, you forget what happens throughout the season, but it's my job and within my job to look at that. They had a blip, and I think they're going to have a blip again. And it was after the World Club Challenge glow died off, and they had that wobble, and they had a couple of injuries, and they didn't get the wins in the same rate that they did at the back end. So I think Wigan will aim to be right at the right time of the year. I think Warrington have a chance of being there or thereabouts at the top. I think George Williams is in for a good year. I think cup wise, the way that Hull KR finished last year, they'll take that into this year, but because they won't be able to plan that season out. Willie Peters is a fantastic coach, but those players are in new uncharted territory now. I think they're a chance of a cup final. So
what did you make of Sam Burgess in his first year?
I thought
it was
brilliant.
Really impressive. Yeah.
Well, everyone likes Sam, don't they?
Yeah.
He's a flawed individual, but he's had his problems and he's had his ups and he's had his downs, but he's somebody that you end up rooting for. And you know, he's not been gone too long, the little fella, and MND is virtually coming out of my mouth every other day with all manner of different things. But the journey that Sam went on with MND will forever stick with me, and the way that he looked after his dad and the character that he showed and the caring that he showed. I don't know if any of you watched that game when Warrington played Saints and Matty Nicholson got sin-binned, and Sam left his position, came to the sideline, and he said, "Don't worry about it, we need you."
Yeah.
And it's just those soft touches, those little nuances, those little intangibles that he's got, and it's naturally there, and he's gonna get the best out of whoever is around, and I everybody roots for him, I think. Certainly the people that I talk to root for him, and I think they're in for a good year, and they've a chance of winning that League Leaders' Shield, I'd say.
St Helens,
aging squad. They need a lot
Paul
of things.
Wellens,
to
one
go.
of them. Paul Wellens had got a 1 year deal. Is he one of the most under pressure coaches, do you feel, to get it right?
Yeah, possibly, because there's a couple of ex-Saints lads in our crew there with Sky who say that the grumblings on the terraces wasn't quite right, but they're in the same position that we've found ourselves in for a while now, trying to find the next cabs off the rank that look like the ones that have just left. But I think they'll finish top 6, possibly top 4. But I don't think they've got enough to get through to any silverware. I might be wrong, but I'm not sure.
Wakefield are back, a new ground and half a new squad. Are you excited for Wakey back in Super League?
Yeah, because it's a rival. It's a West Yorkshire rival for us, and they're one of those traditional clubs. They've got a new improved ground. I don't know whether anybody's been to the new ground. The new stand's lovely, really nice. They're still renovating. They're still developing. I'm not sure what they're doing with the asbestos. But I like Matt Ellis, and I like what he's doing. I like he's ambitious, and he's putting some real money into that club. And there's a feel good factor. Let's not forget they've just spent 12 months winning every week, and that's an unfamiliar feeling for Wakey fans. So there'll be an optimism. I certainly don't think they'll finish bottom. No. I think they'll be. I usually divide the league up into 3 4s, and I do think they'll be at the top of that bottom 4. If you know what I mean. And we're on that the finishes. That middle group. I think we might be in that middle group. And if we finish at the top of that middle group and we get in the top 6, then we can have a go. But as long as we get to those games at the back end of the year with the right players, fit, healthy, keen. We got a chance against anybody. Yeah.
Danny Maguire, ex-teammate of yours, new Castleford head coach, his first head coach. How are you expecting Danny to?
Fascinated because Mags is, and I know there's an affection for Danny Mags.
Thank you.
On this podcast. Let me tell you, it's well placed. He's a lovely man. Knows the game. He's a good communicator. Sometimes good players don't always make good coaches because they do what they do and they don't understand. Yeah. They don't put too much thought in it. It just happens. They just instinctively do it. But if you look at Danny's journey as a player, he started his career as somebody that just backed everybody up. And he was on the end of things, and his effort to get on the end of things became his strength, and then he developed into somebody that could distribute. He still had a bit of pace, but then his kicking game developed, his game management developed, and that for me is a smart individual, and he's taken that into his coaching. He's got Frogger with him, so he's got that bloke that's gonna set those standards defensively. I think they're in for a really tough year this year, Cass, because I just don't think they've got the players,
the squad. Yeah.
I don't think they've got the squad. They've got a number of players that aren't tested and proven at this level, and I think that will make it difficult for them.
When you played with Danny, was he a player that you got the feeling would become a head coach?
Do you know, I love playing with Magsy because he were always on my left shoulder.
Yeah,
he knew I were a right arm.
I remember you put him in for a tap-in against Canterbury.
I give him the ball over the line.
He bloody did, didn't he? He only had to just put it down.
Yeah. Rob
you did all the hard work there.
Rob were another one, but Magsy, I knew what his voice. So I would barge my way into a 2 or 3 man tackle. I'd get my arm out more often than not. I weren't as good as Ali at it, but I was all right. I was pretty good, but a lot of the time I would throw a blind offload.
Just knowing he'd be there.
If Magsy had called for it, I knew he were in the right place, and I trusted him to catch it. However ugly it looked, he'd be there. So I like playing with Magsy, and in terms of a leader, because he was. Let's not forget, he was a captain. He was somebody that represented some of those 3 skill sets that I talked about with Faz, Yestin and Kevin. He had a little bit of some of the good stuff, but what Magsy had, I think, is he had an ability to look at people around him and see what their superpower was, and see how he could use that and incorporate it into his game. Which is a good strength for a coach, isn't it? Understanding people around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to finish off, thanks a lot for coming on. We really appreciate your time. The Rhinos, you kind of mentioned we might flirt with the playoffs. Do you think Challenge Cup, anything, any silverware for Leeds this year, Barry?
There's always a chance in the cup. Treble? There's always a chance in the cup. That's a fact. Here's how so typically before a ball is kicked, before a friendly is played, usually before Boxing Day, to be honest, I'll do me 1 to 12. I'll do me top try scorer. I'll do me man of steel. George Williams man of steel.
Do you think so? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you've gone with. I rarely change it because I like to see at the end.
Who's top try scorer then?
One of the Warrington. It's one of the Warrington players.
Ashton.
Matty Ashton won it last year. I think. Anyway, I'll come back to that. I'm trying to remember a lot here, but I've put us finishing at 6. Salford looked like they were going to mess my order up a little bit because it looked like Salford were going wayward really quickly, but Paul Rowley's done what Paul Rowley does. He's managed to harness that. What he'll do is he'll draw on that with his players, and it'll be a motivator. Everybody wants us to fail. Everybody expects us to fail. Let's shock them. So Salford, I think I had them at 8th, but I don't know. They might finish a bit further up now. But I think we'll be in that middle third, and if we can be in the middle third, for me, what Leeds have got to focus on is making Headingley a fortress.
Yeah.
Make Headingley a fortress, and if people come to Leeds and win, then it's cost them. And they've had to put a hell of a lot into it.
OKR have done, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I went to Hull KR more than any other team last year when I was doing the telly, and every time I got there, I thought he's bouncing. And I'm assuming a lot of you have been to Hull KR and stood in the away end and not seen and felt the atmosphere in what the tall stand, I can't remember which one it is, not the one that's full of the fans standing up, the ones where everyone's sat down. It's probably the oldest stand at Hull KR, but that stand literally is bouncing when they score, and you to the point where when you're on the gantry you're thinking, shit, this is going to fall down. This is going to fall down. But it's brilliant. Hull KR have done it, and I think if Leeds have a mindset of let's make sure we are hard to beat at home, and if people come here and win, then they've had to put a good shift in. I said this on one of the podcasts with you lads last time. It used to get on my nerves if I read the programme and it'd be favourite away. When I'm sat at wherever, Wigan, and I open it up and it's let's pick a player at random, Terry O'Connor. And he
what
said,
did you think of him? So random.
He said, my favourite away ground is Headingley. I used to think, well, we'll fucking see about that.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah. So that list might have had people who put Headingley as a favourite away ground. And
that was then gave you the red flag. To
but what I'm saying is, if we if the team now look at that and think, right, we're going to be difficult to beat at home, and we embrace the challenge of going to Hull KR, we look forward to going to Saints, we look forward to going to Wigan, because guess what? If we don't win, we're gonna push them and we're gonna rattle them as much as we can. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks to Barry for coming
down.
Thank
you.
Barry.
Who's paying me wages here, by the way?
Chris. So Chris has got all the money. Thanks to Seb and the Brotherhood for having us and hosting us, and thanks everybody for the audience for coming down as well. We'll be back to review the first game of the Rhinos season, and we'll see you all then. Take care.